The gala's lights glittered like stars trapped in crystal, casting a warm glow over the ballroom. I stood at the podium, my navy gown hugging my frame, a symbol of the new life I'd carved from the ashes of my past. My non-profit, Haven House, was celebrating its first anniversary, a shelter for women escaping betrayal and broken homes. The crowd, donors, volunteers, survivors, clapped as I spoke about resilience, my voice steady despite the weight of memories I'd buried deep. I was proud, untouchable, until the doors swung open and Ryan walked in. My ex-fiancé's presence hit me like a fist to the chest. His tailored suit couldn't hide the familiar slouch, the smirk that once charmed me. But it wasn't just him. Clinging to his arm was a child, maybe 4 years old, with my sister Lila's hazel eyes. My heart stuttered. The girl's curls bounced as she toddled forward, clutching a crumpled envelope. Ryan's gaze locked on mine, deliberate, like he'd planned this moment to shatter me. The room's chatter faded, my speech trailing off mid-sentence. I forced a smile, excusing myself from the podium, my heels clicking too loudly as I descended. I reached them near the dessert table, my pulse hammering. Ryan's smirk widened, but his eyes were cold, calculating. The girl looked up, innocent and unaware, her tiny hand gripping his. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the crowd's eyes were on us. Haven House's reputation hung in the balance. I couldn't unravel here. Ryan extended the envelope, his voice low, laced with venom. You need to read this, Ellie. It's time you knew the truth. His words slithered into my mind, rekindling the pain of 5 years ago, when I found him and Lila tangled in my bed, my engagement ring glinting on her finger. I took the letter, my fingers trembling. The girl tugged at Ryan's sleeve, calling him Daddy. My knees nearly buckled. Lila's child. His child. The betrayal I'd fled from had grown roots, a living reminder standing before me. I stuffed the envelope into my clutch, refusing to let him see me break. Not here, I hissed, glancing at the girl. She doesn't deserve this. Ryan's laugh was sharp, cutting. Oh, Ellie, you think you're so noble, you don't know half of it. He leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. Lila's gone, and this letter? It's her confession. Gone? The word echoed, a void opening in my chest. Lila, my sister, who'd stolen my life and laughed while doing it. Gone? Dead? Missing? Ryan's eyes gleamed, savoring my confusion. I wanted to tear the letter open, but the gala's spotlight burned into me. My team was watching, donors raising glasses in my honor. I couldn't let this moment, the one I'd built for others, collapse. I straightened, forcing my voice to steady. Leave. Now. Ryan chuckled, scooping up the girl. Read it, Ellie, then we'll talk. He sauntered out, the child waving over his shoulder, her smile piercing my heart. Back at the podium, I fumbled through my speech, my mind splintering. Lila's confession. What could she possibly confess that hadn't already gutted me? The applause felt hollow as I stepped down, my clutch burning against my palm. I slipped into the venue's quiet hallway, the letter calling to me like a siren. I pulled it out, my hands shaking. The envelope was worn, stained, as if it had traveled through hell to reach me. Lila's handwriting scrawled my name, the ink smudged by what looked like tears. My breath caught. I tore it open, the first words stealing my air. Ellie, I'm sorry. It wasn't just Ryan. It was all of us. All of us? My family's faces flashed through my mind. Mom, Dad, the cousins who'd shunned me after the fallout. Had they all known? Betrayed me? The hallway spun, my gown suddenly too tight. I pressed a hand to the wall, the letter trembling in the other. Footsteps echoed behind me, and I turned, expecting Ryan's smirk. Instead, my mother stood there, her face pale, her eyes wide with something like fear. Ellie, she whispered, you weren't supposed to find out like this. I was always the shadow. My sister Mia, with her golden curls and a laugh that could charm anyone, was the sun in our family's universe. She was the firstborn, the star, the one who could do no wrong. I was born 2 years later, a quiet, unremarkable girl who learned early to stay out of her light. My parents adored Mia's vibrancy, her effortless charisma. Teachers praised her. Neighbors adored her. And me? I was the reliable one, the one who cleaned up the messes Mia left behind, the one who faded into the background. Growing up, our small town revolved around Mia's glow. She was the lead in every school play, the captain of the cheer squad, the girl whose name was on everyone's lips. I was the stagehand, the one who memorized her lines when she forgot them, who stayed late to help her finish projects she'd abandoned for parties. I didn't mind at first. I loved her. She was my sister, and her smile made the world feel warmer. But love has a way of twisting when it's never returned. By high school, the pattern was set. Mia would make a mess, miss a deadline, break a heart, crash Dad's car after sneaking out. And I'd be the one to fix it. I'd forge Mom's signature on her failed report cards, lie to her boyfriends when she cheated, or take the blame for the dented fender. My parents never questioned it. To them, Mia was flawless, and I was the dependable one who'd handle things. They'd pat my head and say, "You're such a good sister," as if my sacrifices were my purpose. But being the shadow wasn't just about fixing Mia's mistakes. It was about being invisible. My own achievements, a perfect GPA, the science fair trophy I worked months for, were footnotes compared to Mia's latest drama. When I won a scholarship to a prestigious summer program, Mum barely looked up from planning Mia's prom dress shopping. "That's nice, Ellie," she said, her eyes on Mia's glittering Instagram posts. Mia, meanwhile, was failing half her classes, but somehow that was my fault too. "Help your sister study," Dad would say, as if I wasn't drowning in my own work. The resentment started small, a quiet ember in my chest. I'd lie awake at night, replaying the moments I'd been overlooked, the times I'd swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. I told myself it was fine, that family meant sacrifice, but the ember grew. By the time we were in our early 20s, Mia's messes had escalated. She dropped out of college, racked up credit card debt, and moved back home, expecting me to bail her out again. I was working 2 jobs, saving for grad school, but Mum still handed her my old car when hers got repossessed. "Mia needs it more," she said, as if my 60-hour weeks meant nothing. The breaking point came the summer I turned 23. Mia had been dating Ryan, a sweet guy who didn't deserve her chaos. She'd been cheating on him for months, and when he found out, she spun a story so convincing he apologized to her. I watched it unfold, sick to my stomach, knowing I'd be the one to pick up the pieces when it inevitably fell apart. Sure enough, Ryan showed up at our house, tears in his eyes, begging me to explain why Mia was ghosting him. I couldn't lie anymore. I told him the truth, every ugly detail of her betrayal. For the first time, I didn't cover for her. Mia found out. She stormed into my room that night, her face twisted with rage. "You're jealous," she screamed, "because I'm the one people love." Her words cut deeper than I expected, slicing open years of buried hurt. I stood there trembling as she tore into me, accusing me of sabotaging her life. But something snapped inside me. I wasn't going to be her shadow anymore. I looked her in the eye and said, "I'm done cleaning up your messes." Her expression shifted. Shock, then something darker. She leaned in close and whispered, "You'll regret this, Ellie." The next morning I woke to find my car gone and a note on the kitchen counter in Mia's handwriting. "You owe me." My heart pounded as I realized what she'd done, but that was just the beginning. I stood in the dim glow of the street lamp outside Ryan's apartment, my breath catching in the cold night air. My fingers trembled as I clutched the phone, rereading his text. Meet me tonight. We need to talk about us. My heart raced, a mix of hope and dread swirling inside me. For years, I'd been invisible, a ghost in my own family. But Ryan saw me. He always had. Yet the weight of my past clung to me like damp clothes, and I couldn't shake the fear that it would ruin everything. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the youngest of three in a house ruled by my father's temper and my mother's silence. My siblings, Claire and Mark, were the golden children. Claire with her charm, Mark with his ambition. I was the afterthought, the one who cleaned up their messes, who faded into the wallpaper. My father's voice still echoed in my head. You'll never be anything. I believed him for too long. By 25, I was working a dead-end job, living in their shadow, until Ryan walked into my life. He was a customer at the diner where I waitressed, his easy smile cutting through the monotony of my shifts. He'd linger at the counter asking about my day, noticing the way I'd doodle on napkins when business was slow. You've got a spark, he said once, his eyes steady. Don't let anyone dim it. Those words cracked something open in me, a longing I'd buried deep. We started meeting after my shifts, talking for hours in his car, the world outside fading away. For the first time, I felt like I mattered, but my family didn't take kindly to my happiness. Claire mocked Ryan, calling him a dreamer with no future. Mark warned me not to embarrass them by chasing fantasies. My father was the worst, his disapproval a quiet, cutting thing. You're not built for love, he said, his words landing like a slap. I tried to shrug it off, but doubt crept in. What if he was right? What if I was fooling myself, thinking I deserved someone like Ryan? Tonight, though, Ryan's text felt urgent, and I couldn't ignore the pull to see him. I knocked on his door, my stomach in knots. He opened it, his face softer than usual, but there was a tension in his jaw. Come in, he said, his voice low. The apartment smelled of coffee and old books, a familiar comfort. He sat me down on the couch, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. I've been thinking about us, he started, and my heart sank. Was this the moment it all fell apart? He reached for my hand, his touch grounding me. I want a future with you, he said, his eyes searching mine, but I need to know you're ready to leave them behind. Them, my family. The people who'd shaped me, broken me, defined me. I wanted to say yes, to promise I could walk away, but the words caught in my throat. Leaving meant severing ties, facing their wrath, their judgment. Could I do it? Could I choose myself, choose Ryan, over the only world I'd ever known? We talked late into the night, his voice steady as he laid out his dreams. A small house, a life built together, no shadows looming over us. I wanted it so badly it hurt, but fear gnawed at me. What if I wasn't enough? What if my family's poison followed me, tainting everything? Ryan pulled me close, his warmth easing the ache, but not the questions. You're stronger than you think, he whispered. I wanted to believe him, but strength felt like a foreign thing, something I'd never owned. As I left his apartment, the dawn light creeping over the horizon, I felt torn in two. Ryan's words echoed in my mind, a lifeline pulling me towards something new. But my phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from Claire. Dad's asking where you were last night. My stomach twisted. They were watching, always watching. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over her number, unsure if I should reply or let it go. But then another text came through, this one from an unknown number. We need to talk about Ryan. My blood ran cold. Who was this? And what did they know? The day Ryan's world fell apart, I was there, holding his hand as the news sank in. His tech startup, the one he'd poured 5 years of his life into, had collapsed overnight. Investors pulled out, his co-founder vanished with half the funds, and the office lease was up. I watched him crumble on our couch, his broad shoulders hunched, his hazel eyes hollow. He wasn't just my husband. He was my partner in every sense, my confidant, my cheerleader, my rock. Seeing him like this gutted me. I'd always been the steady one, the one who kept us grounded when his dreams soared too high. Now it was my turn to carry us. I spent weeks coaxing him out of that dark place. I'd make his favorite coffee, leave notes on the fridge, and play his old vinyl records to fill the silence. But the spark in him was gone, replaced by a quiet that scared me. I suggested therapy, but he waved it off, saying he wasn't that guy. So I pivoted. I remembered how he used to love working with his hands, fixing old cars, building shelves for our apartment. Maybe something tactile could pull him back. I found a local pottery class, a 6-week course at a community centre. It was perfect. Creative, grounding, no pressure. I signed us both up, thinking it'd be a fun way to reconnect, to rebuild him piece by piece. The first class was awkward, but hopeful. Ryan's hands fumbled with the clay, his frustration bubbling up as the wheels spun too fast. I laughed, trying to lighten the mood, my own hands slick with mud as I shaped a lopsided bowl. The instructor, a kind older woman with a braid down her back, praised his effort, and I saw a flicker of pride in his eyes. It felt like progress. But then my sister, Emily, showed up. She'd always been the free spirit, the one who flitted between hobbies and boyfriends, never settling. She'd heard about the class from me and decided to join on a whim, her laughter filling the room as she plopped down at a wheel next to Ryan. Emily was everything I wasn't, wild, unguarded, effortlessly charming. Her blonde hair fell in messy waves, and her smile could disarm anyone. I didn't think much of it at first. She was my little sister, after all, the one I'd protected from bullies and bad breakups. Ryan seemed to perk up around her, his jokes coming easier, his posture less defeated. I told myself it was good for him. He needed lightness, and Emily was a walking ray of sunshine. I brushed off the way she'd leaned too close to him, her hand lingering on his arm as they laughed over a misshapen pot. I ignored the late-night texts she started sending him, the ones he'd answer with a chuckle before tucking his phone away. But then the class became their thing. I had to miss a session for a work deadline, and Ryan offered to drive Emily home. I thought nothing of it. Why would I? They started meeting up outside of class, grabbing coffee to talk pottery, or so he said. I'd come home to find them on our couch, her sketchbook open, clay smudged on her cheek, his eyes brighter than they'd been in months. I felt a pang, but I pushed it down. I was his wife. She was my sister. Trust was the foundation of our family, wasn't it? One night, I woke up to an empty bed. Ryan's side was cold, his phone gone. I checked the time. 2 a.m. My stomach twisted as I padded to the living room, half expecting to find him working late. Instead, I saw his jacket missing from the hook. I called him, but it went to voicemail. Then I texted Emily, a casual, "Hey, you up?" Her reply came too fast. "Just chilling at home." But something in my gut screamed she wasn't alone. I grabbed my keys, my heart pounding, and drove to her apartment, the night air sharp against my skin. As I pulled up, I saw Ryan's car parked outside. The world tilted, and I gripped the steering wheel, my breath shallow. What was he doing there at this hour? I thought I knew Ryan inside out. 10 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, and a life we'd built brick by brick. It felt like a fortress. But fortresses crack, don't they? It started with small things. A text he'd hide, a smile he'd bury when his phone buzzed. I'd ask, casual at first, and he'd laugh it off, saying I was overthinking. "It's just work, Sarah," he'd say, his voice smooth as ever, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. I wanted to believe him. I did, but doubt is a seed, and once it's planted, it grows wild. It was a Tuesday when I first noticed the coffee shop receipts, tucked in his jacket pocket, crumpled like they were nothing. 2 lattes, one with oat milk. I don't drink oat milk. I stood in our laundry room, holding that receipt like it was a loaded gun. My heart pounded, but I told myself it was nothing. A colleague, a client, a friend. Ryan was charming. Everyone loved him. Why wouldn't he grab coffee with someone? But the dates on those receipts lined up with his late meetings at work. Meetings he never mentioned until I asked. Meetings that left him smelling faintly of vanilla and something floral, not his cologne. I didn't confront him right away. I'm not that person, or at least I wasn't. Instead, I watched. I became a detective in my own life, piecing together clues I didn't want to find. His phone was locked now, passcode changed. He'd leave the room to take calls, his voice low, muffled by closed doors. When I asked who it was, he'd say, "Just Mark from accounting," or "a vendor, boring stuff." But his shoulders tensed, and his smile was too quick, too practiced. I started waking up at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. Was I crazy? Was I seeing things that weren't there? One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until he was in the shower, his phone on the nightstand. My hands shook as I picked it up. I didn't know the passcode, but I tried his birthday, our anniversary, the kids' birthdays. Nothing worked. Then I saw it. A notification from someone named Chi. Just a heart emoji. My stomach dropped. I put the phone down like it burned me, my breath ragged. When he came out, towel around his waist, he saw my face and froze. "What's wrong?" he asked, all concern, but his eyes flicked to his phone. I blurted it out. "Who's Jay?" My voice was sharper than I meant, but I couldn't stop. "Why's your phone locked now, Ryan? What are you hiding?" He laughed, but it was hollow. "You're being paranoid, Sarah. It's just work stuff. You know how it is." He stepped closer, his hand on my arm, gentle but firm. "You're tired. The kids are stressing you out. Don't do this to yourself." His words twisted something inside me, made me feel small, unhinged. Was I imagining it? Was I the problem? But I couldn't let it go. The next day, I followed him. God, I hate admitting that. I left the kids with my sister, said I had errands, and tailed him to a coffee shop downtown. There he was, at a corner table, laughing with her. She was younger, with dark hair and a smile that lit up the room. They weren't touching, but the way he leaned in, the way his eyes lingered, it was intimate. My chest tightened, like someone was squeezing my lungs. I wanted to storm in, to scream, but I just sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. When he came home that night, I was calm, too calm. I asked about his day, and he lied so easily, said he'd been in meetings. I nodded, smiled, played the part, but inside, I was breaking. I didn't know who this man was anymore, and worse, I didn't know what I was capable of. As he kissed my forehead and went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at that damn receipt I'd kept. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. But what was I going to do about it? The answer was coming, and it terrified me. I'd always trusted Mia with my whole heart. 5 years together, planning a wedding, building a life. She was my anchor, my future. My sister Lily was the only family I had left after our parents passed, and she'd been my rock through every storm. The thought of them together, betraying me in the worst way, never crossed my mind. Not until that Thursday afternoon, when I came home early from a cancelled work trip, my suitcase still in hand, and saw Mia's blouse draped over the banister like a taunt. Then her shoes, scattered on the stairs. A scarf I'd bought her for our anniversary, crumpled like trash. Each step up the staircase felt like wading through quicksand, my pulse hammering in my ears. I knew what I'd find, but I didn't want to believe it. Not yet. The bedroom door was ajar. Soft murmurs seeped through the crack, intimate and wrong. My hand shook as I pushed it open, and there they were. Mia and Lily, tangled in the sheets of the bed I'd shared with my fiancé for years. The air left my lungs like I'd been punched. Mia's eyes widened, her face paling as she scrambled to cover herself. Lily just stared, her expression unreadable, like she'd been caught but wasn't sorry. "Jake," Mia stammered, her voice breaking, it's not what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. My world shattered in that single unbearable moment, and the pieces were too sharp to pick up. I don't remember what I said. Maybe I yelled, maybe I didn't. My voice felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. I just stood there frozen, while Mia babbled excuses, and Lily stayed silent, her gaze cutting through me like a knife. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my body wouldn't move. All I could see was the life I'd planned. Our house, our future kids, the promises we'd made, crumbling into ash. I turned and walked out, their voices chasing me down the stairs. I didn't stop until I was in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't know where to go. I just drove. Hours later, I found myself at a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where the coffee's bitter and the lights hum too loud. My phone buzzed endlessly. Mia's texts, her voicemails, pleading for me to come back, to talk, to let her explain. Lily hadn't called, not once. That stung worse than anything, like she'd already written me off. I stared at the coffee cooling in my mug, replaying every moment of the past 5 years. Had there been signs? Late night texts Mia brushed off? Times Lily lingered too long at our place? My mind spiraled, picking apart memories I'd thought were safe. I felt like a fool, blindsided by the 2 people I loved most. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes, slid a slice of pie in front of me. "On the house," she said softly, like she could see the storm in my head. I nodded, unable to speak, and pushed the pie away. My stomach churned, not from hunger, but from the weight of betrayal. How do you rebuild after this? How do you trust again when your fiancé and your sister, your only family, rip your heart out? I didn't have answers, but sitting there, something shifted. Anger started to burn through the shock, slow at first, then fierce. I wasn't going to let this destroy me, not without a fight. I pulled out my phone and opened Mia's last text. "Please, Jake, let me explain. I love you." My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I didn't type anything. Instead, I opened a new message, one I hadn't planned to send. It was to my cousin, Ethan, a private investigator who'd offered his help years ago when I'd half joked about needing to keep tabs on people. I'd laughed it off then. I wasn't laughing now. "Can you look into something for me?" I typed, my hand steady for the first time in hours. I hit send, and the diner's hum faded into the background. Whatever came next, I was done being the fool. But what would Ethan find? And was I ready to face it? I stood in the middle of the banquet hall, the hum of celebration pressing against my ears like a suffocating fog. My mother's laughter rang out, sharp and triumphant, as she clinked glasses with Mia, her soon-to-be daughter-in-law. Mia's hand rested on her barely there baby bump, a smug curve to her lips as she caught my eye across the room. My brother, Ethan, stood beside her, his arm draped possessively around her waist, his grin wide and oblivious. The engagement party was in full swing, and I was supposed to be the supportive sister, smiling for the cameras, toasting to their future. But every forced smile felt like a shard of glass in my throat. They didn't know I knew. They didn't know I'd seen the texts, the late-night calls, the truth that unraveled everything I thought I understood about family. 6 months ago, I'd been Ethan's confidant, his go-to when Mia's moods drove him up the wall. He'd vent about her demands, her jealousy, how she'd pick fights over nothing. I listened, nodded, offered advice, because that's what sisters do. But then I found the messages on his phone, left open on the kitchen counter like a taunt. Mia wasn't just his fiancée. She was my mother's ally, her protégée in a twisted game I hadn't even known was being played. The texts weren't just flirty banter between lovers. They were calculated, venomous, plotting to cut me out of the family business, to paint me as unstable, unreliable. "She's too emotional," my mother had written. "We'll ease her out after the wedding." Mia's reply, "Don't worry, I've got Ethan wrapped around my finger. She won't see it coming." I clutched my champagne flute, the stem cold against my palm, as I watched them now, laughing with my father's business partners like they were already royalty. My mother had always favored Ethan, her golden boy, but this was betrayal on a level I couldn't comprehend. She'd known Mia was manipulating him, known she was pregnant before Ethan even proposed, and instead of warning him, she'd orchestrated the engagement, thrilled at the idea of a grandchild to cement her legacy. I was the collateral damage, the daughter who asked too many questions, who saw too much. The room spun as I replayed the moment I confronted Ethan last week. I'd shown him the texts, my hands shaking, expecting him to be as horrified as I was. But he just laughed, called it a misunderstanding, said I was overreacting. His dismissal stung worse than the betrayal itself. He was choosing her, choosing them, over me. My own brother, the one I'd stayed up with through nightmares as kids, the one I'd covered for when he snuck out in high school. Now, he looked at me like I was the enemy. I took a sip of champagne, the bubbles bitter on my tongue. The band struck up a slow song, and couples drifted to the dance floor. My mother's eyes found mine, her smile faltering for a split second before she turned back to Mia, whispering something that made them both laugh. I felt the weight of their conspiracy pressing down on me, the air thick with their secrets. I wanted to scream, to throw my glass and watch it shatter, to demand answers in front of everyone, but I didn't. Not yet. I'd learned something in the weeks since I found those texts. Revenge isn't loud. It's patient, precise, and devastating. I set my glass down and slipped through the crowd, my heels clicking against the polished floor. I needed air, needed to think. Outside, the night was cool, the stars hidden behind city lights. I leaned against the balcony railing, my breath uneven, my mind racing. They thought they could erase me, rewrite my place in this family. They thought I'd stay quiet, play the dutiful daughter, but they'd underestimated me. I'd spent weeks digging, piecing together their lies, their plans. I had evidence, documents, recordings, things they'd never suspect I'd found. The question wasn't whether I'd act, it was when. And as I stood there, the laughter from inside echoing like a mockery, I realized the answer was closer than I'd thought. Tomorrow I'd start, but tonight I'd let them think they'd won. Just as I turned to go back inside, my phone buzzed in my clutch. A new message from Mia. My heart stopped as I read the first line. I was 24 when I walked away from the only life I'd ever known, clutching a crumpled envelope with $5,000 from my dad, and a heart so heavy it felt like it might drag me to the ground. The money wasn't a gift, it was a severance, a final transaction to sever the ties between us. My childhood home loomed behind me, its red brick facade glowing under the Indiana sunset, mocking me with memories of laughter that had long since turned to ash. I didn't look back as I slung my duffel bag over my shoulder and stepped onto the gravel path. Each crunch under my boots felt like a declaration. I was done. My dad's betrayal had been the final blow, but the cracks in our family had started years before. Mom died when I was 12, leaving a void that Dad filled with whiskey and resentment. My older sister Claire became my anchor, but even she couldn't shield me from the slow unraveling. By the time I was 18, Dad had remarried. A woman named Deborah, whose smile was as sharp as a blade. She brought her son, Ethan, into our home, and with him came a new hierarchy. Claire and I were demoted to outsiders in our own lives. Ethan got the bigger room, the better clothes, the car I'd saved for but never drove. Deborah's voice dripped with false sweetness, but her eyes told the truth. We were in her way. I tried to keep the peace. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing at a diner and stocking shelves at a hardware store, to save for college, hoping education would be my escape. But every dollar I earned seemed to vanish into family expenses, which always meant Ethan's new phone or Deborah's spa days. Claire saw it too, but she was stuck, married to a deadbeat who drained her faster than Dad's liquor cabinet. I begged her to leave with me, but she'd just smile sadly and say, "Someone's got to hold this place together, kid." I hated her for staying, but I loved her too much to argue. The real breaking point came the night I found Dad's letter. It was tucked in his desk, scrawled in his messy handwriting, addressed to Deborah. He'd rewritten his will, leaving everything, the house, the savings, the family business, to her and Ethan. Claire and I were mentioned only once, as afterthoughts, inheriting nothing but fond memories. Fond memories? The words burned my eyes. Memories of Mom's funeral, of Claire braiding my hair while I cried, of Dad promising we'd always be a team. Those were the memories he thought were enough. I confronted him that night, my voice shaking with rage. He didn't deny it. He just looked at me, eyes glassy, and said, "You're young. You'll figure it out." That's when he handed me the envelope with the $5,000, like it was charity, not my birthright. I could have stayed. I could have fought for the house, for Claire, for the life I'd been promised. But standing in that driveway, I knew fighting would only chain me to their poison. So I walked. The $5,000 was my ticket out, but it came with a weight I hadn't expected. Every step away from that house felt like betraying Claire, like abandoning the only person who'd ever truly had my back. My phone buzzed in my pocket, her name on the screen, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. What could I say? That I was running? That I was choosing myself over her? The bus station was a mile away, and the Indiana air was thick with summer heat. My duffel bag dug into my shoulder, but the pain felt right, like a penance. I had no plan, no destination, just a burning need to reclaim my life. The money wouldn't last long, but it was enough to start. A new city, a new name if I wanted, anything to erase the girl who'd been erased first. As I reached the station, the neon sign flickered, casting shadows on the cracked pavement. A bus idled, its destination sign reading Chicago. I froze, my heart pounding. Was this it? Was this my escape? Or was I about to make the biggest mistake of my life? I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, the city skyline sprawling before me like a canvas of jagged lights. The air was crisp, carrying the faint hum of traffic and the promise of a fresh start. 3 years ago, I'd left behind a life scorched by betrayal, my heart a smouldering ruin. My husband David and my sister Claire, 2 people I'd trusted with my soul, had shattered me. Their affair wasn't just a fling, it was a calculated year-long deception, complete with stolen weekends and whispered promises. I found out on our 10th anniversary when I stumbled across their texts on his phone, each word a dagger. The divorce was brutal, the family fallout worse. My parents took Claire's side, claiming I'd driven David away with my intensity. I was alone, unmoored, my life a pile of ashes. But ashes, I learned, can be fertile ground. I moved 1,000 miles away to a city where no one knew my name or my pain. I started small, a job at a nonprofit, a tiny studio apartment, therapy sessions where I cried until my throat burned. Slowly, I began to rebuild. I poured my grief into purpose, founding the Phoenix Foundation, a nonprofit to support women escaping betrayal, abuse, or loss. It was my lifeline, a way to alchemize my pain into something meaningful. We offered counseling, legal aid, job training, everything I'd wished for when I was at my lowest. The work consumed me, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was enough. Yet even as the foundation grew, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Late at night, I'd catch glimpses of a shadow lingering near my building, or my phone would buzz with unknown numbers, only silence on the other end. I told myself it was paranoia, a remnant of the trauma I'd carried. But the unease gnawed at me, a quiet warning I couldn't ignore. I threw myself deeper into work, hoping to drown it out. The Foundation's first gala was approaching, a fundraiser that could secure our future. I spent weeks planning, networking, and crafting a speech that laid bare my story, not for pity, but to show what rising from ruin looked like. The night of the gala, I stood in a sleek black dress, my reflection in the mirror a stranger's. I looked strong, composed, but inside I was a storm. The venue buzzed with donors, their chatter a backdrop to my racing thoughts. As I stepped to the podium, the spotlight burned my skin, but I spoke with fire. I told them about the women we'd helped, mothers escaping violence, wives rebuilding after infidelity, daughters finding their voice. I shared my own story, my voice cracking only once when I mentioned Claire. The room erupted in applause, and for a moment I felt invincible. But then I saw her. In the back of the room, half hidden by a pillar, stood Claire. Her blonde hair was shorter, her face thinner, but it was unmistakably her. My heart lurched, the world tilting. She wasn't supposed to be here. She couldn't be. I hadn't seen her since the divorce, when she'd sobbed and begged for forgiveness I couldn't give. What was she doing in my city, at my event? My speech faltered, but I pushed through, my eyes locked on hers. She didn't move, didn't smile, just stared with an intensity that chilled me. When I stepped off the stage, she was gone, swallowed by the crowd. I scanned the room, my pulse hammering. Was I imagining it? Had grief and stress conjured her face? I excused myself, slipping into a quiet hallway to catch my breath. My phone vibrated in my clutch and I pulled it out, hands trembling. A text from an unknown number. You can't outrun the truth. My stomach dropped. I typed a reply. Who is this? But deleted it. I didn't want to engage, didn't want to fall back into the chaos I'd escaped. But as I stood there, the hallway stretching dark and empty, a single question burned. Had Claire come to rebuild like me, or to burn everything down again? 3 years had passed since I last saw Ryan, but the scars he left still burned beneath my skin. I stood in the glittering ballroom of the gala I'd spent months planning, my navy gown shimmering under the chandeliers. The clink of champagne glasses and soft hum of laughter filled the air, a testament to my hard-won success as an event planner. This night was mine, a celebration of everything I'd built after clawing my way out of the wreckage Ryan left behind. But my dad's call that afternoon had shaken me. His voice, usually steady, trembled as he warned me. He's back in town, sweetheart. Be careful. I brushed it off, telling myself Ryan was a ghost. a memory I'd buried. He couldn't touch me now. I was no longer the naive girl who fell for his charm, his promises of forever. Back then I was 23, fresh out of college, dazzled by his confidence and the way he made me feel like the center of his universe. We were engaged within a year, planning a life together, until I found the texts on his phone. Messages to another woman, explicit and raw, sent while I slept beside him. When I confronted him, he didn't even flinch. He just shrugged, said it was nothing serious, and expected me to forgive him. I didn't. I walked away, leaving behind the ring, the dreams, and a piece of my heart I'd never get back. The betrayal wasn't the worst part. It was what came after. Ryan spread lies about me to our mutual friends, painting me as the unstable one, the clingy fiancé who couldn't handle his freedom. I lost half my social circle, my confidence shattered. I moved back home, started over, and rebuilt myself brick by painful brick. This gala was proof I'd made it. I scanned the room, smiling at clients, shaking hands, my professional mask firmly in place. But my dad's warning gnawed at me, a splinter I couldn't ignore. Then I saw him. Ryan stood across the ballroom, his dark hair slicked back, his suit tailored to perfection. In his arms was a little girl, no older than 2, with his same piercing blue eyes. My breath caught, my heart slamming against my ribs. He wasn't supposed to be here. This was my event, my sanctuary. How did he even get in? The girl clung to him, her tiny hands gripping his jacket, and for a moment I wondered if she was hers, the other woman's. The thought twisted like a knife. He caught my eye and smiled, that same crooked grin that once made my knees weak. Now it sent ice through my veins. He started walking toward me, weaving through the crowd, the girl bouncing in his arms. My hands trembled, and I gripped my champagne flute so tightly I thought it might shatter. I wanted to run, to scream, to disappear. But I couldn't. This was my night, and I'd be damned if he ruined it. Ellie, he said when he reached me, his voice smooth, like no time had passed. You look incredible. The girl stared at me, her eyes wide and curious, and I felt a pang I couldn't name. Up close, Ryan looked older, lines etched around his eyes, but his charisma was still there, dangerous and magnetic. I hated how my body reacted, a traitor to my mind. What are you doing here? I managed, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I glanced at the girl, then back at him, searching for answers in his face. He tilted his head, his smile widening, like he knew exactly how much he was unsettling me. I heard about your big night, he said, bouncing the girl gently. Thought I'd come congratulate you and introduce you to someone. He looked down at the child, then back at me, his eyes locking onto mine. This is Lily, our daughter. The world tilted. My champagne flute slipped from my hand, shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed, heads turning, but I barely noticed. Our daughter? It was impossible. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. I hadn't been with him in 4. My mind raced, scrambling for sense, but Ryan just stood there, watching me unravel, his smile never wavering. The letter sat on the table like a ticking bomb, its crisp white envelope mocking me with Ryan's neat handwriting scrawled across the front. My name, Sarah, was written in bold, deliberate strokes, as if he'd taken pleasure in every loop and curve. I hadn't opened it yet, but I knew what it contained. He'd been hinting at it for weeks, his smug smiles and cryptic comments at family gatherings slicing through me like a dull knife. He thought he'd won. He thought he could expose me, unravel my life, and walk away unscathed. But he didn't know about the ally waiting in the shadows, someone who'd turn his carefully laid plan into a public reckoning he'd never see coming. It started 3 months ago at my cousin's wedding. Ryan, my brother-in-law, had always been the charming one, the golden boy who could do no wrong. Everyone loved him. My parents, my sister Emily, even strangers at the grocery store. But I saw through the mask. I'd caught the way his eyes lingered too long on me when Emily wasn't looking, the way his compliments carried a barbed edge. At the wedding, he cornered me near the open bar, his breath heavy with whiskey. "You think you're so perfect, Sarah," he'd slurred. "Always the good daughter. Let's see how long that lasts." I brushed it off, chalking it up to alcohol and his usual needling. But then the rumours started. Whispers followed me like a bad smell. Friends asked why I was dodging calls. My boss gave me side glances during meetings. Someone had been spreading lies, vicious, calculated lies about me having an affair with a married co-worker, about me sabotaging Emily's marriage out of jealousy. I confronted Ryan at a family dinner, my voice shaking as I demanded answers. He just smirked, leaning back in his chair and said, "Truth hurts, doesn't it?" Emily, oblivious, laughed it off, saying I was too sensitive. But I saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes, the first crack in our sisterly bond. That night, I lay awake, replaying his words, my anger simmering into something sharper, something dangerous. I started digging. Ryan wasn't as clever as he thought. A friend in IT owed me a favor, and a few clicks later, I had proof. Emails he'd sent from a burner account, spreading the lies to my co-workers, my friends, even our parents. He'd painted me as a homewrecker, a liar, a betrayer. Why? Because I'd rejected him years ago before he married Emily. He'd never forgiven me for it, and now he was rewriting my life to suit his grudge. The letter, I knew, was his final move, a public declaration of my supposed sins, addressed to the whole family, to be read at our annual reunion tomorrow. He wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone I loved, but he didn't know about Claire. Sweet, quiet Claire, our family's wallflower, who'd been watching Ryan's games for years. She'd approached me a week ago, her voice barely above a whisper, and told me she'd seen something that could ruin him. Claire had always been underestimated, her soft demeanor mistaken for weakness, but she was sharp, meticulous, and fiercely loyal. She'd kept records, screenshots, even a recording of Ryan bragging about his plan to destroy me. I didn't want to drag her into this mess, but she insisted. "He's gone too far, Sarah," she said, her eyes blazing with a fire I'd never seen. "Let me help you end this." The reunion was tomorrow, and I could already picture Ryan standing up, letter in hand, ready to play the hero. My stomach churned at the thought of facing him, of hearing his lies read aloud to aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone who'd ever believed in me. I wanted to run, to skip the whole thing, but Claire's words echoed in my head. "We'll take him down together." I clutched the envelope, my fingers trembling, not with fear, but with resolve. Ryan thought he'd cornered me. He thought he'd won. But tomorrow, when he opened that letter, he'd learn the truth about reckonings. And who really held the power? What did Claire have on him? What secret was so damning it could flip the script entirely? I wouldn't know until tomorrow, and the waiting was tearing me apart. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth as I stood on my balcony, staring at the city skyline. My fingers curled around the cold metal railing, the weight of the last 10 years pressing into my palms. I'd built an empire from nothing, a towering foundation that bore my name, but it wasn't always like this. Once, I was just a woman betrayed, a mother stripped of everything, clawing her way out of a life that tried to bury her. My son, Ethan, was my reason to keep going, even when the world felt like it was collapsing under my feet. But this story isn't just about survival. It's about what I did to the people who thought they could break me. It started with David, my husband of 15 years. We were the couple everyone envied. High school sweethearts, a beautiful home, a son who lit up our world. I thought we were untouchable, but behind my back, David had been unraveling our life, thread by thread, with her. Her name was Claire, his co-worker, all sharp smiles and calculated charm. I found out about them by accident, a text message lighting up his phone at 2 a.m. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. My stomach dropped. The kind of freefall that makes you question everything you've ever known. I didn't confront him right away. I couldn't. Ethan was asleep down the hall, and I needed to be sure. For weeks, I played the part of the oblivious wife, cooking dinners, smiling at his lies, while I gathered evidence. Emails, hotel receipts, whispered phone calls when he thought I was asleep. Each discovery was a knife to the chest, but I didn't let the pain consume me. I turned it into fuel. David wasn't just cheating, he was planning to leave me with nothing. I overheard him talking to Claire about draining our joint accounts, selling our house, and starting fresh with her. He thought I was too soft, too trusting to fight back. He was wrong. I started planning in secret. I hired a lawyer, a shark named Rachel, who specialized in making men like David regret their choices. She told me to document everything, so I did, meticulously, like I was building a case for war. I opened a separate bank account, siphoning small amounts from our savings so he wouldn't notice. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was protecting Ethan. David didn't care about the fallout, about what his betrayal would do to our son. But I did. Every move I made was for Ethan, for the future I'd promised him. The hardest part was pretending. Every night I'd lie next to David, his arms slung over me like nothing had changed, while my mind churned with strategies. I'd smile at Claire when she came to our house for work dinners, her perfume lingering like a taunt. She thought she'd won, that I was clueless. But I saw the way her eyes flicked to David, the way her hand brushed his when she passed the wine. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage, I was fighting for my dignity, for the life I'd built. The day I decided to act, my hands shook as I signed the papers Rachel prepared. Divorce papers, asset freezes, a custody plan that would keep Ethan with me. I'd found proof David was hiding money offshore, a betrayal deeper than the affair. Rachel said it was enough to ruin him financially, maybe even legally. But I didn't just want to win. I wanted them to feel the weight of what they'd done. I wanted them to look at me and see the woman they underestimated, rising like a phoenix from the ashes of their lies. That night, I left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, right where David would see them when he came home. I took Ethan to my sister's house, promising him a weekend of fun, shielding him from the storm about to break. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from David. "Where are you? We need to talk." My heart pounded, not with fear, but with something fiercer. Anticipation. This was just the beginning. What would he do when he realized I wasn't the broken woman he expected?